Welcome back to the second video in the month of PlayStation 1 platformers that are kinda similar to other yeah, you get the idea. Today, we're taking a look at the game in my collection that's probably worth the most money. A game I spent next to nothing on back in like 2003. And yet it was a game I held a huge grudge against for years, because I had to trade like 10 of my other PS1 games for it, just to realize that the back of the case was hugely misleading to my stupid tween brain. I held a grudge against Klonoa, Door to Phantomile, for quite a while. So what other platformer from this era is it similar to? Tomba. How? It's 2.5D in mechanical and aesthetic ways. They're both really story-driven as well, but that's about where the similarities end. Told you it wouldn't necessarily have a ton to do with every game. Klonoa was initially released on March 10th, 1998, which is actually exactly 19 years ago while I'm writing this script. As I already stated, Klonoa is a 2.5D platformer, which stars a mascot-style character known as Klonoa and his best friend Hupo on their quest to save the dream realm of Phantomile from being overtaken by nightmares. This game's formula is somewhat unique, in that platforming and attacking largely requires utilization of enemies if the player wants to find success. With Hupo's help, Klonoa can grab enemies and carry them around. Once he has an enemy, he can use it to kill other enemies by throwing it, or use it as a double jump. As long as you can grab another enemy, you can continue to jump again and again while in the air. Klonoa also has a flutter ability, using his ears, which allows him to float for a short while after jumping. Mechanically, Klonoa is a really simple game, but a surprising amount can be done with these mechanics. Story-wise, the game is really complex and deep, for a platformer. I've seen a lot of people praise this story for being a masterpiece. I wouldn't go that far, but at least it's mostly consistent and does meaningful things with its characters. Spoilers ahead, by the way. The game essentially follows Klonoa's attempts to thwart an evil being known as Gadius, who's trying to bring nightmares upon the world of dreams. Klonoa and Hupo travel across Phantomile to achieve this goal, helping the leaders of each region along the way. Eventually, though, cracks in the facade start to appear. It doesn't seem like an accident that Klonoa is the one who's trying to save Phantomile. It's almost as if he was chosen for this role. And he was. In the end, after the death of his supposed grandfather, the truth starts to be revealed. Klonoa isn't actually from Phantomile. His relationship with Hupo, who is actually the Prince of the Moon Kingdom, was fake. Memories were crafted to get Klonoa to save the world from Gadius. Klonoa was brought here for the singular purpose of saving Phantomile, and once he's done saving it, he can't stay. I like a lot of the story beats here, but most of the game is still essentially, this kingdom has a problem that you need to solve. When an emotionally involved scene is on the screen, it works well, but I don't think they elevate the narrative to an unprecedented degree. The only real depth comes from Klonoa's relationship with Hupo. The rest are just sort of events that happen. Perfectly serviceable, and more than just your regular platformer story, but nothing that special when looking at other game narratives or narratives at large. Not to mention, the story has a few convenient plot points that, if this is a story that wants to be taken more seriously, needed to be addressed. Why is Klonoa suddenly able to shoot a super strong wind bullet to kill the final boss? Where did everyone get those cannons for that matter? How did Hupo summon Klonoa, and why him? Where does Klonoa actually come from? And why does he presumably keep ending up in Phantomile in the sequels? Klonoa's main mechanics are a good idea. They're simple, but they're also unique and effective. Again, Klonoa can grab enemies to throw, or use as a double jump, and he has a flutter. The controls here are smooth and easy to use for the most part. The challenges also utilize every mechanic fairly well. However, the game leans toward the easy side for the most part, with a few annoying difficulty spikes. It's also rather short, and doesn't test your use of the mechanics to an exciting degree until the secret level, but that has its own problems that we'll get to later. One thing I found rather frustrating is that you can't go back and explore previous levels until you've beaten the game, meaning you're likely to forget where the main path is on any given level. This is a problem since the game rarely does anything to mark the required path, meaning you'll often accidentally take it before fully exploring the level. Sometimes you can't even turn back, meaning you're forced to beat the game, and then beat that whole level again later. If you make the same mistake again because it's been a few hours since you've been to that level, have fun beating it a third time. This is just kind of needless for a game that's so casual to play through otherwise. Each area in Klonoa consists of 2 stages, known as visions, and a boss. Bosses in Klonoa are some neat ideas, but they're all just sort of waiting games. Waiting games that can keep you waiting for quite a while if the enemy chooses not to make themselves vulnerable. Most of the bosses cycle consistently. As I said though, the game is generally far too easy, up until level 5-2, where it suddenly has a huge spike. It's not necessarily unfair, so much as surprising, and therefore kind of frustrating. Though there is one bit in the main game that I would argue is unfair, but we have to explain some other issues first. To begin, the 3D perspective thing can be a bit annoying. Though you're always stuck on a 2D plane, your perspective as well as enemies and other objects are not. Most enemies and objects are sprites. This makes judging where something is in relation to Klonoa rather difficult when the perspective is shifting. Since your perspective and angle on sprites changes in ways that don't always make sense in 3D space when you move, this can lead to many missed attacks and such that logically should have landed. Beyond that, I don't like that you can hold the X button to flutter as well as press it again to flutter. The problem is that max height precision jumps are difficult under pressure, since you have to hold X to get max height on your jump. But if you do it for just a frame too long, you end up cancelling it into the flutter, it'll stop Klonoa's forward momentum in its tracks, and can screw up your rhythm. This, and other minor issues, all culminate in this section right here. It showcases how moving perspective can be an issue, how the lack of proper respawns for some enemies can force you to have to reset an entire segment, how holding enemies can cause problems with your jump height, how Klonoa can sometimes slide when you stop moving for no good reason, how iframes after getting hit can be too few for some obstacle structures, how desyncing enemies and platform patterns can be a problem, how the speed of some platforms can be too quick for the challenge in question, and how the difficulty spike can feel kind of unfair. I wasted so many lives here. Granted, this is one small section in the entire game, so it's not a huge problem, but it does showcase many of the smaller areas where the game could have been improved. Things you don't realize exist through the rest of the game because it's so forgiving otherwise. The extra level really showcases the weaknesses in Klonoa's polish in the same way. Flying enemies hover up and down in place, meaning precision, which is required here, comes down to luck. Inputs drop often because of awkward recovery animations as well. And for some reason they decided to make this level full of one-hit kills and give you limited lives. At least perspective shifts don't screw everything up here, because they don't happen. As far as I remember, the perspective is 2D the whole way through the secret level, and I think the issues the perspective shifts cause are the very reason they don't exist in this level. The team understood that there were issues, and the perspective shifts don't really work for more complicated platforming challenges in the game's current state. Klonoa may have some mechanical and design issues, but by and large it has a great aesthetic and great music. Some of the character designs are ones that I find ugly as hell, like Hupo in his princely form for example. But most of them are gorgeous. Klonoa and Pamgaea in particular have fantastic designs. They're consistent with each other, they're detailed, and the great designs all have extraordinarily strong silhouettes. Colors are whimsical and animations are nice enough. This amount of quality also goes for the level aesthetics as well, which could maybe be a bit more imaginative for a dream world, but are still pleasing and consistent. Despite jumping to brand new aesthetics every 2 levels, the world still feels cohesive enough as well. The game also has some fantastic music, with some songs like 6-1 being standout tracks. This too fits the theme of Dreams, being light, sparkly, and tonally consistent. Consistency seemed to come up a lot while I talked about this game, and that's because that's really what it is for the most part. Not absolutely amazing, but it's still consistent enough to feel like it had good direction and solid goals. Klonoa isn't a game I absolutely love, but these days, I'm still glad I own it. And I would be, even if it wasn't now worth 5+ times the amount I spent on it back in the day. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in another one, here's the last one that I uploaded. You can also follow me on Twitter or subscribe by hitting the subscribe button.